You don't receive what you deserve simply by hoping. You receive what you ask for. Many people want more from life, more respect, more support, more freedom, yet they never voice it. They wait. They hold back. They assume asking will make them seem weak, needy, or selfish. The reality is different. If you never ask, nothing changes. Others cannot meet your needs if you never say them aloud. That's why mastering the ability to ask clearly, calmly, and confidently is one of the most valuable skills you can develop. This text will show you how to dismantle the fear, stop overthinking, and ask precisely for what you want. You will learn how the mind reacts to rejection, hesitation, and approval, and how to rewire those responses. Instead of living quietly, you will start producing real outcomes. The art of asking, of getting what you want, isn't about luck. It's about training your mind to speak, act, and move with intention. Your life can only climb as far as your capacity to ask. One of the biggest shifts you can make is training your mind to believe you deserve better. That's the beginning. It doesn't begin with money, credentials, or raw talent. It starts with the beliefs you hold about yourself. If deep down you think you don't deserve better, you'll never ask for better or pursue it. You will sit quietly, wait, accept less, and convince yourself it's fine even when it isn't. That becomes your reality, not because it had to be that way, but because you never changed what you believed you were worth. So the first place to start is not your job, your relationships, or your schedule. It's your thinking. Your mindset shapes everything else. People who get what they want are not inherently luckier or more special. They've trained their minds to believe they can ask for what they want and that they have every right to receive it. Many people get stuck because they feel inadequate. They live as if they don't matter. They whisper instead of speaking up, shrink when it's time to assert themselves, hide their needs, and apologize for taking up space. That is not how you move forward. You must stop living as if you are less. Stop accepting unworthiness as normal. Life does not reward those who play small. It rewards those who act boldly. But before you can be bold outwardly, you must be bold in your inner world. You need to stand up in your own head and say, I deserve a better life, and I will start asking for it. Begin by noticing how you talk to yourself. Listen to your inner voice. Do you constantly tear yourself down? Do you talk yourself out of chances with phrases like, I'm not good enough, or, I'm not ready? That kind of internal narration keeps you stuck and silent. Replace those thoughts with stronger ones. Look in the mirror and tell yourself, I'm capable. I matter. I have something to give. This is not arrogance, it's acceptance of reality. Potential is meaningless unless you believe in it. Respect yourself enough to ask for more time, more opportunities, fairer treatment. You cannot do that if you secretly think you're not worth it. If you were raised to stay quiet, to expect little, to be grateful for scraps, that worldview becomes habitual. It's not healthy and it does not build the life you want. You must unlearn that script and decide your past will not dictate your future. Take small, daily actions to rebuild your self-worth. Speak up when something feels off. Do not stay silent merely to preserve peace. If you desire more, say it. Don't lower your voice when you describe your ambitions. Don't behave as if asking for fairness is excessive. Remember that whatever you tolerate becomes your standard, raise that standard. Some worry about being a burden, but asking is not a burden. It is a right. If you deliver value, show up, and work hard, you owe it to yourself to speak up when you need something. Asking is responsibility, not weakness. Responsible people ask, they do not expect others to read their minds. They step forward and communicate clearly. But before you address the world, address yourself. Each morning, look in the eye and affirm that you are not here to live small, that you are here to grow, to contribute, and to win. That kind of daily mindset changes your posture, the way you enter a room, how you shake hands, and how you speak in meetings. Someone who truly believes they deserve more carries themselves differently. You will not get what you want by waiting. You get it by asking, stepping up, and believing, truly believing, that you are as worthy as anyone else. People who believe they deserve more don't beg for scraps, they pursue the full meal, not from greed, but from recognition of their value. This transformation does not happen overnight. Years of quiet lies like, "I'm not smart enough," need to be replaced with stronger truths. Whenever doubt appears, interrupt it. Replace, "I'm not ready," with, "I am growing." Replace, "I don't know enough," with, "I am learning." Replace, "I lack answers," with, "I will take action." That daily training of the mind builds resilience and muscle for confidence. Over time, your inner voice strengthens, and you stop talking yourself out of opportunities. When you believe you deserve more, everything shifts. You make stronger choices, stop chasing those who disrespect you, avoid draining situations, and refuse a life that doesn't match your vision. But it all begins in the mind, that inner battleground. Win that battle and you'll start winning in other areas of life. Life is ready to offer more, but first you must ask. And before that, you must deeply believe, not sometimes, not half-heartedly, but consistently every day. Start now by changing how you see yourself. When you believe you deserve more, the way you ask changes, and when you ask with conviction, people notice. Things begin to move. You hold back from asking because you fear being a nuisance. That fear sits in your chest and makes your voice small. It shows up as a tight throat, a jittery hand, a quick withdrawal before the sentence finishes. But this hesitation is not politeness. It is fear disguising itself as courtesy. The worry about bothering others keeps your needs unseen and your aspirations stalled. When you refuse to ask, your needs go unmet, your dreams are delayed, and your potential remains hidden. Many capable people live inside this loop. They are generous, smart, and filled with ideas, yet they have learned that speaking up equals selfishness. They fear appearing needy or weak, so they stay quiet. The truth is the opposite. Asking takes courage. It requires admitting you need support, clarity, or a chance. It requires saying, "I don't understand, I need help, or I deserve an opportunity." Silence is the refuge of weakness. Strength is choosing to speak when it matters. To change that pattern, you must decouple asking from the idea of being a problem. Asking is action. It is a way to move forward. No one moves through life alone, everyone relies on others at times. People who progress quickly are not those who know everything, but those who have learned to ask for what they need. If you were raised where requests were dismissed or punished, that conditioning stays with you. You might not even notice it, you simply start avoiding eye contact, holding back in meetings, hesitating before sending an email, always telling yourself it is not the right moment. That avoidance is not timing. It is a learned reflex. It can be changed. Start by examining the facts. Look at the people who get what they want. They ask. They put themselves out there. They call, send messages, raise their hand. Do they bother people? Rarely. They are doing what strong people do, making needs clear. Others are not mind readers. If you do not speak, they will not know what you want. They will not guess. They will move on. You will remain stuck. That is unfair to you and unhealthy. Relationships and careers depend on clear requests. When you stop treating asking as a disruption and start treating it as responsibility, your attitude changes. You will carry yourself differently. You will not apologize for needing support. You will not downplay your requests. You will speak with the posture of someone who respects their own needs. Most people are absorbed in their lives, they are preoccupied with their own stress and concerns. They are not waiting to judge your question. Even if someone reacts poorly, that says more about them than it does about you. You are not here to ensure everyone feels comfortable. You are here to grow, to create, to contribute. Growth needs help, questions, and the willingness to ask. You do not have to beg or explain endlessly. A clear question is enough. Can you help me with this? Is this possible? Would you consider this idea? Simple direct language is not demanding, it is decisive. You do not need to be loud to communicate strength. Honesty matters. Be direct and respectful, not evasive. Don't drop hints or expect people to notice signs you never gave. Hinting is passivity. Passivity breeds resentment. If you want to stop feeling ignored, don't ignore your own voice. Asking is responsible behavior. People who ask set boundaries and get direction. They get answers. Sometimes the answer is no, and that is fine. No is better than silence. No gives clarity, feedback, and a path forward. Silence only prolongs uncertainty and drains your energy. Before you ask, be deliberate. Think through what you actually want. Pausing to gain clarity is not procrastination, it is preparation. Define your intent. What outcome will show you this request mattered? When you ask consciously, your words land sharper. If someone says your request is too much, that is not your burden to carry. You have a right to ask. Your ask reflects your standards. Don't shrink them to keep others comfortable. If someone declines, accept it with grace and move on, but keep asking. Many people stifle their growth by choosing what feels safe. Safe feels good short-term but stalls long-term growth. Asking places you in a vulnerable spot. On the other side of vulnerability are the opportunities you have missed by remaining quiet. You must train yourself to ask even when it hurts. Append small experiments into your days. Begin with modest, low-risk requests. Notice how often people say yes. You will find the world is not as punitive as your fear claims. Each small ask weakens the hold fear has on you. Over time, asking becomes less of an event and more of a habit. Habit removes drama. The more you step into the uncomfortable, the less the discomfort commands you. Your brain will update its predictions about the consequences of asking. Instead of bracing for catastrophe, it will expect manageable responses. That rewiring happens through repetition. When you practice asking, you also create a clearer sense of self. Every time you state a need, you teach your mind that your voice matters. That builds self-respect. Self-respect shifts your posture, your tone, and your presence in rooms. You begin to speak without guilt. You give people the chance to respond honestly. You stop weaponizing silence to test others. You learn to ask succinctly, short sentences, calm tone, clear intent. This makes it easier for the listener to respond rather than having to decode you. Nervousness is normal. Your body will alert you whenever you step outside its comfort zone. Sweaty hands, shaky voice, rapid heartbeat, these are the body's attempt to protect you. But nervousness is not a stop signal. It is a feeling you can hold while you act. The skill is learning to speak while nerves are present. Practice by asking in safe spaces first. Ask for clarification in meetings, request help on small tasks, and seek feedback. Each moment of practice reduces the size of the fear. You will not always feel calm, but you can still move forward. Courage is not absence of fear, it is action in spite of it. Do not mistake asking for aggressiveness. There is a difference between being demanding and being clear. Assertiveness respects both parties. It communicates what you need without belittling the other person. When you ask clearly, you give people a fair chance to respond. If the answer is no, that gives you information. You gain clarity and can adjust your plan. If you never ask, you rob yourself of that feedback cycle. Someone else who is less qualified but more willing to ask will take the opportunity you passed up. That is not a measure of your worth, it is a consequence of inaction. Waiting for permission is a trap. There is no universal signal that says you are allowed to proceed. Too many people wait for a green light that never arrives. Meanwhile, others who are no more prepared step forward and are rewarded for the attempt. Permission seeking is rooted in fear, fear of rejection, fear of appearing greedy, fear of being judged. But keeping your future hostage to other people's approval ensures you never grow. If you know where you want to go and your request is honest and fair, ask without hesitation. You do not owe extended explanations. You do not need everyone to comprehend your vision. You need only to ask and then accept the response. Understand who you are asking before you make the request. People respond based on their priorities, fears, and values. Some want facts and numbers, others respond to emotion and connection. Some retreat from pressure, others avoid conflict. If you tailor your ask to align with the other person's way of thinking, your chance of a positive response increases. This is not manipulation. It is respect. It signals that you have thought about their perspective. When you prepare in this way, your words land better and build trust. One of the biggest obstacles is the fear of the word no. No triggers old memories and stings like physical pain because the brain treats social rejection as a real threat. But no is not a verdict on your worth. It is a directional signal. It tells you what to change, when to pause, or where to redirect your energy. Reframe no as feedback rather than failure. The more times you hear it, the less power it retains. Hearing no is part of the learning loop for every successful person. They treat no as information and use it to refine their approach. If you have carried a childhood message that a no was shameful, you can retrain that belief. Expose yourself to small rejections and learn that you survive them. Each exposure weakens the involuntary fight or flight response. With practice, you respond to a no with curiosity rather than collapse. Ask follow-up questions. What would make this possible? What concerns do you have? Is there a better time? That kind of reaction turns rejection into constructive dialogue and moves you closer to a yes down the line. Practice asking until it becomes familiar. Asking is a skill that improves with repetition. Start small, accumulate wins, and gradually aim higher. Asking frequently rewires your brain. It loosens fear and builds confidence. The people who ask easily are not without fear, they are habituated to the act. They ask because they have trained themselves to do so. Make asking a daily habit and you will notice a shift in how people respond and how you feel about your own needs. Be precise when you ask. Vague language creates confusion and inaction. If you want something, state it clearly and simply. Clear requests respect both parties and reduce friction. When you know what you want, you must put it into words that others can understand and act on. Direct language honors your time and theirs. It reduces the guesswork and accelerates results. People appreciate clarity, it makes them comfortable responding. Pay attention to how people respond to your asks. Their reaction reveals their stance toward you. Some will listen, consider, and reply with honesty even if they cannot grant the request. Others will make excuses, ignore you, or belittle your needs. Those responses tell you where to invest your energy and where to step away. Respectful people do not always say yes, but they deliver honest responses and treat your voice with care. Repeated dismissal is a sign you are in a place that will not support your growth. Protect your voice by adjusting your environment when necessary. Finally, ask often and follow up with action. Asking once and waiting quietly is insufficient. Ask consistently and do the work that follows. Asking opens doors, action walks you through them. Make asking and acting your default rhythm. Over time, this produces momentum. Momentum is not the product of luck but of repeated motion. When you combine clear requests with steady follow-through, you build a life that reflects your values and desires. When nerves rise, your body tries to protect you by pulling you back. Your hands sweat, your chest tightens, your voice may tremble. This is not a signal to stop. It's simply your body telling you that you're stepping into growth. Speaking your needs while you feel uneasy is a muscle you can build. The first step is accepting that feeling nervous is normal. It does not mean you are failing. It means you care. You can feel that nervousness and still speak. The skill is learning to move through the sensation without letting it rule your actions. Practice speaking in low-stakes moments. Ask for clarification in a meeting, ask a colleague for a quick review, or request a small favor. These are not just minor social attempts, they are training reps for your confidence. Each time you speak despite nerves, you show yourself proof that you survived the discomfort. That proof rewires your mind. Over time, the same physical sensations will no longer mean danger, they will mean that you are taking an important step. The goal is not to eliminate the nervousness but to make it irrelevant to your behavior. When you prepare to speak, choose simple language. You do not need an elaborate speech. Use direct and honest sentences. Slow down your words. Pause when necessary. A calm, clear tone invites people to listen. If your voice shakes, keep going. If your hands tremble, let your words steady the message. The first few times will feel awkward. That is expected. What matters is repetition. Courage grows through small acts repeated enough times to become routine. Don't confuse being timid with being thoughtful. Strong communicators are not always loud. Often they are the calm, measured voices who clearly state their needs without drama. That steadiness creates respect. People respond to clarity because it makes their role in the exchange obvious. They can either engage or decline, but they won't be left guessing. The more you practice speaking your needs in this clear manner, the more you protect your peace and the less you accumulate resentment. There will be moments when your ask is met with resistance or silence. Prepare for that possibility. A no is not a verdict on your identity. It is information. It tells you something about timing, priorities, constraints, or fit. Respond to a no with curiosity rather than collapse. Ask a follow-up question. What would need to change for this to be possible? Is there an alternate path you'd consider? Those follow-ups convert rejection into data. They keep the conversation alive and move you closer to a workable solution. If you were taught to accept silence as the default, you need deliberate unlearning. Many people were conditioned to stay quiet to keep the peace. That habit is costly. It erodes your worth and becomes self-fulfilling. The world treats you according to how you present your needs. When you begin to vocalize your requests, you change the pattern. You train the people around you to expect clarity from you. Over time, they will respond differently because your behavior signals that your needs are legitimate. Stop waiting for permission. There is rarely a benevolent gatekeeper who will arrive and bless your next move. Waiting for external approval is a quiet form of surrender. It surrenders your timetable, your priorities, and your ability to act. You can choose another path, assume permission and act with integrity. If your ask is reasonable, fair, and rooted in effort, present it confidently. You do not need to exhaustively justify your goals. Simple statements make space for real dialogue. If the answer is no, gather the information and recalibrate. If it is yes, you move ahead. Either way, you practice initiative rather than passivity. Many people delay because they want to feel fully ready. The problem is that readiness seldom arrives as a clear sign. Most growth happens while you are still learning. The people who progress fastest are those who act before they feel perfect. They accept imperfection as the price of momentum and they iterate. Waiting for flawless conditions bores holes in ambition. Acting imperfectly and refining as you go builds momentum. The key is to pair bold asks with responsible follow-through. Ask and then deliver. If you fail, adjust and try again. That cycle creates progress. Before you make a request, do the homework. Think about the person you will speak with. Understand what matters to them. People make decisions through filters shaped by their concerns and values. Some respond to logic and data. Some respond to emotional connection. Some are driven by risk avoidance, others crave novelty. Tailoring your ask to the other person's perspective is not manipulation, it is respect. It shows you have considered their world, and that builds trust. A well-shaped request is like a key that fits the other person's lock. Observe patterns in colleagues, friends, or leaders you interact with regularly. Notice how they communicate under pressure. Watch what they praise and what they ignore. Use those observations to shape your language. If they value numbers, bring proof. If they value relationships, emphasize collaboration. If they need time, provide a clear timeline and ask for a follow-up date. Small adjustments like this vastly increase your chances of being heard. Even when you don't get an immediate yes, people are more likely to keep the door open when you demonstrate awareness of their mindset. Fear of the word no is common, and understandable. The mouth hears no, the mind remembers rejection, the body recalls the emotional discomfort. But no is not an annihilation. It is a signal. Every successful person has collected many no's along their path. Those no's were not the end, they were filters and teachers. When you remove the personal judgment from a no, you can treat it as a directional sign. A no points you toward better timing, different people, or an improved ask. Embracing that perspective makes rejection useful instead of paralyzing. Feed your resilience by intentionally exposing yourself to low-cost rejections. Ask for things that are easy to recover from. Each small no increases your tolerance for the bigger no that comes with risk. As your tolerance grows, your capacity to act expands. You no longer bind your future to a single fearful possibility. You create options. And options are freedom. Turn rejections into experiments. When someone declines, ask what their main concern was and whether there is a way to address it. If your ask failed due to timing, propose a date for a follow-up. If it failed due to resources, ask if there is a scaled-down version that could work. That curiosity converts refusal into negotiation and shows maturity. It demonstrates that you are committed to finding solutions, not wallowing in disappointment. Practice asking repeatedly until it becomes normal. Treat asking like a habit you train daily. Start with tiny, safe requests and then gradually increase the stakes. The point is to create a pattern of action that teaches your nervous system that asking is a routine behavior, not an existential threat. Habituation reduces the drama around each ask and makes you more resilient when the stakes are high. When you practice, do not over-polish the language in your head. Overthinking creates a rehearsed, fragile ask that collapses under real interaction. Instead, focus on clarity of intent. Know what outcome you want and state it plainly. Simpler sentences travel better in human ears. Direct requests make responses easier. If you find your mind spiraling into what-if scenarios, anchor yourself by asking one clear question: what do I want them to do differently? Use that answer to form a concise sentence. Clarity protects relationships. Vague complaints create resentment because they require others to guess and fail repeatedly. A direct request honors both parties by making expectations explicit. When someone understands exactly what you need, they can respond honestly. That honesty builds trust. Even an honest no is better than an unclear maybe that drags on and poisons the relationship. Pay attention to who respects your ask and who does not. Responses reveal people's boundaries and priorities. Some will respect your words even when they cannot grant the request. They will say no kindly, explain their constraints, and offer alternatives. Others will dismiss you, ignore your communication, or make you feel guilty for speaking up. Those reactions are informative. Repeated dismissal signals an environment that will not support your growth. You can remain kind while shifting your investment away from people who consistently ignore your needs. Protect your voice by placing it where it holds weight. That may require tough decisions, leaving a job where your input is routinely dismissed, redefining friendships that drain you, or setting firmer boundaries with family members. These moves are not vindictive, they are protective. The point is to invest your energy where it is respected and reciprocated. Your time and attention are finite, and where you allocate them shapes your future. Finally, combine asking with action. Asking is the doorway. Doing is the progress. When you speak your needs, follow up with movement. If you ask for a meeting, prepare the agenda. If you ask for feedback, implement what you learn. If you ask for an opportunity, show up prepared to deliver. People respond to those who not only ask but prove they can execute. Action amplifies the value of your requests and signals seriousness. Over time, this pattern of ask plus action creates unstoppable forward motion. Name that motion in your head: momentum. Audiobooks. It's the slow, steady accumulation of clear requests and consistent follow-through that changes how the world responds to you. Keep asking and pair each request with action. Asking alone is not a strategy, it's the invitation to act. When you put a clear question into the world, follow it with movement. If you ask for a meeting, set a date and prepare a short agenda. If you ask for feedback, put the suggestions into practice and report back. When you show that you can move on an ask, people stop seeing you as someone who only talks and start seeing you as someone who executes. Execution multiplies trust. Trust opens doors. Doors open opportunities. That chain is simple, but most people break it by expecting permission without following through. Don't be that person. Match your words with deeds and you will create a reputation for reliability. Small actions compound. The habit of doing something after each ask trains both you and the people around you. It trains you to be accountable and it trains others to take your request seriously. Over time, this rhythm generates a persistent force in your life. Momentum. Audiobooks is the name for that force, the cumulative power that comes from repeatedly asking, acting, refining, and asking again. It is not flashy. It is not instantaneous. It is slow, steady, and relentless. Yet it changes outcomes in ways that single dramatic efforts never can. Commit to the pace of accumulation rather than searching for one big breakthrough. When you ask and act, expect imperfect answers. People will say no, yes, maybe, or offer a compromise. None of those answers are dead ends. A no provides information. A maybe suggests conditions to satisfy. A compromise can be a starting point. The difference between those who are paralyzed and those who move forward is how they handle these responses. The paralyzed treat any answer that isn't a full yes as failure. The forward-moving treat every response as a usable piece of data. Learn to be practical about replies. Ask clarifying questions. If someone says no, ask what would change that decision. If someone offers a compromise, test it and keep the conversation alive. This iterative approach transforms rejection into progress. Follow-up matters more than most people realize. A polite follow-up is not pestering, it is professional. If you proposed an idea and heard nothing, a brief reminder demonstrates seriousness. If you received feedback, a short update about what you implemented shows responsiveness. If you asked for help and got a partial response, checking in with a clarification is responsible. People are busy, messages get lost, priorities shift. A timely follow-up often distinguishes the person who receives an opportunity from the one who doesn't. Make follow-ups concise, polite, and purposeful. They keep momentum moving. Timing is important but not as decisive as you might think. People often wait for the perfect moment, imagining signals that will confirm readiness. The truth is that readiness is constructed through motion. Ask now, then refine based on the response. Waiting for perfect alignment is a form of avoidance. It comforts you with the illusion of control while costing you time and potential. Instead, develop a bias toward action. Ask when you have enough clarity to state the need, even if you don't have every detail. Then, iterate. Momentum grows when you move before certainty arrives. Language matters. Use specific, concrete words. Avoid vague complaints that require others to guess. If you want help, say precisely what help looks like. If you need time, specify the hours or days. If you want feedback, ask about 1 or 2 areas you want improved. The clearer your language, the easier it is for someone to respond helpfully. Vague asks create friction, clear asks accelerate outcomes. Remember that clarity is kindness because it saves everyone time. Respect the other person's constraints. Part of effective asking is acknowledging that others have limits, time, budget, attention, or emotional bandwidth. Mentioning this briefly in your request shows maturity. For example, I know you're busy, but could we schedule 15 minutes next week to discuss X? This approach reduces defensiveness and increases the chance of a reply. It tells people you are considerate while still being direct about your needs. Anticipate objections and answer them before they are raised. If you are requesting resources, show the ROI or explain how you will mitigate risk. If you need someone to change behavior, sketch out what that change requires and how you can support it. Anticipating concerns does not mean over-explaining, it means being thoughtful. Thoughtful requests land better because they reduce cognitive load for the person you're asking. They make it easier for that person to say yes or provide a constructive no. Build a record of small wins. Keep a simple, private log of requests you made, the responses you received, and the follow-up actions you took. Over time, this log will show your progress, reveal patterns, and serve as evidence when you ask for bigger things. It also strengthens your confidence because you can review how frequently you've been told yes, what you learned from no's, and how your actions translated into results. This self-evidence is powerful when self-doubt creeps in. Practice precision in tone. There's a difference between being assertive and being abrasive. Assertiveness is firm and calm, abrasiveness is loud and emotional. When nerves rise, it's natural to escalate the volume, but that rarely helps. Train yourself to deliver requests with steady breath and measured pacing. Pauses are powerful, they give others time to consider. A calm, composed delivery invites constructive engagement. If you find your emotions running high, step away, breathe, and return with a composed request. Emotional intelligence amplifies the effectiveness of your ask. Learn to convert a no into a negotiation rather than a dead stop. If someone declines, explore whether a scaled-down version or phased approach could work. Ask, what would make this possible, or, is there a smaller pilot we could try? These questions show solution orientation and preserve the relationship. They also provide alternatives that might be acceptable to both parties. Often, a willingness to adapt makes the difference between a closed door and a half-open one. Create scripts for common asks so you don't overthink in the moment. A short template helps you keep language tight and purposeful. For instance, a basic structure might be, quick context, precise request, brief justification, and a clear ask for next steps. Practicing these templates allows the words to flow naturally when it counts. But avoid sounding robotic, use the template as a guide, not a script to recite verbatim. Naturalness builds rapport, and templates help you get to the point without getting lost in anxious over-preparation. Set boundaries around the energy you give to unanswered asks. There is a difference between persistent follow-up and draining fixation. Decide in advance how many follow-ups you will attempt before pivoting. 2 or 3 targeted follow-ups often suffice. If no response comes after that, redirect your energy to other pathways. Obsessing over silence wastes time and reduces your capacity to create momentum elsewhere. Wise persistence means following up enough to be responsible but not so much that it consumes you. Be strategic about where you invest your vocal energy. Not every person or place is worth exhausting your voice. Notice patterns in who respects your asks and who dismisses them. Invest more in relationships that reciprocate and less in those that drain you. This doesn't imply ruthlessness, it implies stewardship. Your voice and time are limited. Allocate them where they produce the highest return. Over time, this strategic allocation magnifies your impact. Celebrate the minor victories. Every yes, every constructive no, every follow-through is a sign of progress. Acknowledge these wins internally and, when appropriate, externally. Thank people who helped you. Public recognition of support strengthens relationships and reinforces the behavior you want to see. Gratitude is a multiplier, it makes people more likely to help again. Keep refining your asks based on feedback. If your requests are consistently met with confusion, adjust your language. If people are slow to respond, shorten your messages or change the channel. If people reject you for timing, consider a different schedule. Treat your communications as experiments, hypothesize, test, measure, and iterate. This scientific approach reduces personalizing rejection and increases your rate of improvement. Remember that asking is an ethical act when done with integrity. Don't ask for things you are not willing to reciprocate when appropriate. Don't request favors you cannot honor. Being trustworthy matters. Trustworthiness multiplies the effectiveness of future asks. People will invest more in you when they believe you will honor agreements and follow through. Hold space for silence after you ask. Resist the temptation to fill every pause with justifications. A well-placed silence can be persuasive. It signals that you are confident enough to let the idea stand on its own. It gives the listener space to process and formulate a thoughtful response. If you find silence uncomfortable, practice it in low-stakes scenarios so it becomes tolerable in high-stakes moments. Model the behavior you want by asking others how you can support them. Reciprocity builds strong networks. When you take genuine interest in others' needs, they become more open to your requests. Offer help when appropriate and follow through. People remember those who show up for them. Over time, a network of mutual support forms, and asking becomes a natural part of those relationships rather than an intrusion. Finally, remember that this process is a practice, not a test. You are learning to align your internal voice with external actions. You are training your nervous system to accept that social risk is survivable. The goal is not to be perfect at asking but to be consistent. With steady repetition, clarity, respectful follow-ups, and matched action, you will build momentum. Audiobooks, a steady, accumulating force of progress that reshapes your life. Keep asking. Keep moving. Keep refining. Keep the habit. The world responds to those who consistently combine clear voice with purposeful action. When you speak your needs, you also invite accountability. Saying something aloud creates a social contract, even if it's informal. It moves a desire from an inner wish to a shared aim. That shift matters because it brings clarity and forces you to act. If you tell someone you want to improve, you are more likely to take steps that align with that statement. If you ask for help, you set the stage to receive it and then to repay it in kind. The act of asking is not passive, it demands follow-through. When you connect words and action, trust grows and opportunities become tangible. Work on the small habits that support consistent asking. Make it a daily practice to voice one need, one clarification, or one boundary. These small acts accumulate into a larger identity, someone who speaks clearly and gets things done. The habit reduces the drama around asking and shifts your internal story from avoidance to agency. Over time, what once felt risky becomes routine. Your nervous system stops interpreting simple requests as crises and starts seeing them as ordinary interactions. That recalibration makes it easier to scale up. Once you are comfortable with everyday asks, you can approach bigger ones with greater ease. When you aim for bigger requests, prepare evidence. Tangible proof reduces ambiguity. If you want a promotion, gather data on your contributions and outcomes. If you want more time with someone, show how that time would be structured and what benefit it would create. Evidence tells a story that complements your words. It helps others visualize the value and reduces the cognitive effort required to say yes. Preparing evidence is not about bragging, it is about making the decision easier for the person you are asking. It is a kindness to them as much as it is to yourself. Develop the discipline of concise follow-up notes. After important conversations, send a one-paragraph summary of what you heard, what you requested, and suggested next steps. This practice prevents misunderstandings and demonstrates professionalism. It also gives the other person a moment to correct or confirm the record. People are busy and memory is fallible. Written follow-ups create a shared reference point that keeps the process moving. They signal seriousness and increase the likelihood that your ask will be prioritized. Guard your tone. The way you ask affects how people receive your request. Even when your words are clear, a hostile or pleading tone can derail the conversation. Aim for calm conviction. Imagine you are offering a reasonable proposal rather than demanding a favor. That stance invites collaboration rather than defensiveness. If you notice your voice rising or your sentences collapsing into apologies, slow down. Pause, breathe, and reset. People are more willing to engage with someone who appears composed and thoughtful. Remember to respect timelines. If you request something that requires action from others, give them reasonable time to respond. Rushing people often backfires. On the other hand, don't let reasonable timelines become indefinite. If you haven't heard back after the agreed window, follow up politely. A gentle nudge helps maintain momentum and prevents your request from being deprioritized. Treat follow-ups as part of the professional rhythm, not as pestering. When you respect others' time but also value your own, you communicate both empathy and resolve. Create rituals that support courageous asking. Rituals are simple actions that prepare your mind for the conversation. For instance, before a difficult discussion, take 2 deep breaths, state your intention silently, and rehearse one clear sentence you will use to begin. Rituals reduce anxiety by providing structure. They transform the unknown into a manageable sequence of steps. Over time, these rituals become anchors that steady you when emotions rise. Be open to iterative agreements. Rarely does a single conversation settle everything forever. Most meaningful requests evolve through a series of adjustments. If someone agrees to a pilot or a trial, treat it as an opportunity to gather data and refine the ask. Demonstrate responsiveness by adapting based on what you learn. That flexibility builds credibility and shows you are committed to mutual benefit rather than a one-sided win. When people see your willingness to iterate, they are more likely to invest in longer-term collaboration. Practice gratitude as part of your asking routine. Thank people for their time, even when the outcome is not what you hoped. Express appreciation for honest feedback and for the learning it provides. Gratitude is not about flattery, it is about acknowledging that other people are part of your progress. Recognizing that fact keeps relationships healthy and increases the probability that people will continue to help you in the future. A brief thank you after a meeting or response is often remembered and reciprocated. Stay mindful of how often you ask the same people for favors. Reciprocity is a social currency. When one person carries the load of requests, the relationship becomes unbalanced. Track your asks and make sure you are giving as much as you are requesting when possible. Offer help, provide value, or simply express support in return. Balanced relationships are durable and more likely to support you when you make larger or riskier asks. Build a network of varied supporters. Different people can help in different ways. Some give practical assistance, others offer emotional support, and some introduce you to opportunities. By diversifying your network, you reduce the risk of over-reliance on a single person and increase the range of resources available to you. Cultivate relationships broadly and invest in them consistently so you have a robust community to lean on when you need to ask for something significant. Distinguish between wants and non-negotiables. Not every desire deserves your energy. Some things are preferences, others are essential for your well-being and growth. Learn to categorize your requests so you allocate effort wisely. Non-negotiables, your core needs and boundaries, require clear, persistent communication because they shape your long-term life. Preferences can sometimes be adjusted or postponed without significant cost. This clarity helps you avoid wasting time on battles that do not matter and focus your voice on what truly moves your life forward. Use role-playing to prepare for high-stakes asks. Enlist a trusted friend or mentor to simulate the conversation. Practice both the ask and possible objections. This rehearsal prepares you emotionally and sharpens your responses. It also helps you identify where your ask may lack clarity so you can refine it before you speak to the real decision-maker. The act of practicing reduces surprise and increases composure. Monitor your internal narrative about asking. Notice when you tell yourself stories that minimize your needs or exaggerate the negative consequences of speaking up. These narratives are often automatic and outdated. Challenge them by asking what evidence supports the thought and what evidence disputes it. Replace catastrophic predictions with realistic possibilities. This cognitive work reduces the emotional load that makes asking feel riskier than it really is. Keep learning from each interaction. After an important request, reflect on what went well and what could improve. Did you present the evidence effectively? Was your timing off? Did you anticipate objections? Were you too vague or overly detailed? Use these reflections to fine-tune your approach. Growth comes from iterative learning. Each ask is a data point that informs your next attempt. Protect your dignity while accepting outcomes you cannot control. Sometimes people will decline or behave poorly. That reflects their priorities and constraints, not your value. When faced with a disappointing response, resist taking it as a judgment on your worth. Maintain composure, thank them for their time, and decide whether to attempt a different strategy or move on. Preserving your dignity preserves your ability to ask again and to do so effectively. Recognize that asking is a practice of leadership. Leaders clarify needs, articulate vision, and enlist others. When you ask clearly and follow through, you demonstrate that you can align people and resources toward a purpose. That skill is invaluable in careers, relationships, and communities. Practicing the art of asking positions you as someone who can mobilize progress rather than someone who passively waits for it. Finally, embed the habit of pairing ask with action into your identity. Let the combination of clear requests and immediate follow-through define how you move through life. Each time you ask and then deliver, you reinforce a pattern that earns trust and produces tangible change. Over months and years, this disciplined practice turns small, consistent choices into significant outcomes. That steady force, momentum audiobooks, is how long-term transformation occurs. It is not dramatic. It is methodical and relentless. But it works. When you ask, you open a door. What you do next determines whether that door stays open or closes. Following through after a request is what turns words into results. Action validates your ask. It proves you were serious. It signals to others that their time and energy are well invested with you. This is why asking without follow-up rarely changes long-term outcomes. A single request is only the beginning, the momentum that follows is what builds real progress. Make it a rule to attach a next step to every ask. If you want someone to join a project, propose a first meeting time. If you ask for feedback, tell them when you will share what you changed. If you request support, explain how you will use it and how you will report back. Those simple commitments convert a vague conversation into a sequence of actions that produce results. Consistency matters more than intensity. Flashy efforts may create temporary excitement, but consistent small actions compound into something dependable. Do one thing after each request, even if that thing is tiny. Send a short summary. Schedule a follow-up. Implement a single piece of feedback. Those micro-actions demonstrate reliability. Over weeks and months, the accumulation of these small steps convinces others to trust you more and to invest in your ideas. Reliable follow-through builds reputation. Reputation leads to easier asks and faster yes. The compound effect of consistent action is how ordinary choices become extraordinary outcomes. When follow-through is expected, design your requests with that in mind. Don't ask for open-ended favors without proposing how you will move things forward. People respond better when they can see a clear plan. A plan reduces friction. It lowers the cognitive cost of saying yes. When you propose a next step, you also make it easier for the other person to meet you halfway. For instance, if you ask a manager for time to discuss a promotion, offer 3 specific time slots and a 1-page agenda. If you request help from a friend, explain exactly the kind of assistance you need and a realistic time frame. Clarity combined with a plan removes excuses and increases momentum. Expect imperfect replies and use them as raw material. Most responses will not be exactly what you hoped for. They may be a partial yes, a conditional no, or a request for more information. Each of those outcomes is useful. A partial yes gives you an entry point. A conditional no highlights what needs to change. A request for more information pinpoints the gaps in your presentation. Treat each answer as feedback, not as a verdict. When you reframe responses this way, you maintain control of the process and keep moving instead of retreating into silence. Follow-up is not nagging when it is concise and purposeful. A short, polite message that brings attention back to a prior agreement or that shares progress demonstrates accountability rather than desperation. People appreciate partners who are organized and who respect their own time by keeping things on track. Make your follow-ups value-focused, remind them of the intended outcome, show what you have done since the last conversation, and ask for the next micro-step. This approach keeps the dialogue constructive and positions you as someone who acts. Timing of follow-up matters as much as the content. Give people reasonable time to respond, but do not allow good intentions to become indefinite postponement. If you agreed on a time frame and it passes without response, reach out with a short reminder that references the original ask and proposes a clear next action. When you do this consistently, people learn that your requests are serious and that you will not permit them to languish. That expectation creates efficiency in your interactions and preserves the momentum you are trying to build. Learn to anticipate objections and address them proactively. Most people hesitate because they perceive risk. You can reduce perceived risk by preemptively answering likely concerns. If your request involves time, outline how much time and what the deliverables will be. If it involves money, present the return on investment or a conservative estimate of benefits. If it involves a change in behavior, explain how you will support the transition. Anticipating objections is not manipulation, it's thoughtful preparation that makes it easier for others to say yes. Keep a record of what you asked for, who you asked, and the responses you received. A simple tracking habit prevents the mental clutter that causes opportunities to slip through the cracks. It also gives you a factual basis for future asks and follow-ups. When you can point to a history of responsible action and measurable progress, people are more likely to invest further. That historical evidence is especially powerful when asking for larger commitments because it demonstrates that you convert support into outcomes. Practice gratitude in your follow-up communications. A quick thank you after someone takes time to reply, to meet, or to offer feedback strengthens relationships. Gratitude reminds people that their help was meaningful and that you value the exchange. This simple habit increases the likelihood that they will help again and that others will hear about your reliability. Gratitude is a small investment with outsized returns for both your network and your emotional resilience. Set boundaries for how long you will pursue an unanswered ask. Persistent follow-up is often productive, but there is a limit. Decide in advance how many follow-ups you will make before pivoting to another channel or shifting your focus. This rule prevents wasted energy and preserves your dignity. If a request has been ignored beyond reasonable follow-ups, consider alternative approaches, find another contact, reframe the ask, or use different evidence. The wisdom is in not freezing on a single path when multiple routes are available. Seek allies who can amplify your asks. Sometimes the quickest way to get traction is to involve someone who already has influence or credibility with the people you need to reach. Allies can advocate on your behalf, make introductions, or co-sign a proposal. Don't be afraid to ask for this kind of support, but do it respectfully and with reciprocity in mind. People will be more willing to help if you have a track record of supporting them in return. Building a circle of allies expands your capacity to act and increases the range of opportunities you can access. Use short, tangible experiments to validate big asks. If you want a long-term project approved, propose a small pilot first. If you seek a substantial budget, propose a limited trial to prove the concept. Pilots reduce perceived risk and create measurable data that you can use to scale. Decision-makers prefer options that allow learning with limited downside. By proposing a low-risk experiment, you convert abstract requests into immediate, testable work that drives real evidence and accelerates larger approvals. Model the behavior you want from others by responding promptly to their asks. Reciprocity matters. If you are slow to respond or unclear when others ask for help, they will be less inclined to assist you. Fast, clear responses create a culture of mutual respect and make it easier for people to reciprocate. If you want a supportive environment, demonstrate support first. Consistent reciprocity builds stronger networks and makes your long-term asks more likely to be accepted. Stay adaptable when plans change. Even well-structured requests can meet shifting circumstances. Responding rigidly to changes often blocks progress. Instead, approach setbacks as opportunities to redesign the ask in a way that aligns with the new constraints. Flexibility coupled with tenacity keeps the momentum alive. When others see your willingness to adapt while maintaining focus on the goal, they tend to respect your leadership and engage more willingly in the process. Guard against allowing others' indecision to halt your own progress. If someone delays or can't commit, identify other steps you can take unilaterally to continue creating forward motion. Look for independent actions that don't require permission but still advance your objective. By doing so, you retain agency and reduce the power that others' inaction has over your trajectory. Initiative often creates new options and, in some cases, prompts decision-makers to shift from passivity to action because they see progress happening without them. Invest in communication skills that reduce friction. Clear writing, concise speaking, and thoughtful listening accelerate decisions. When you communicate succinctly, you reduce the mental load on others and make it easier for them to respond. Listening, in particular, is a powerful tool. When people feel heard, they are more likely to engage constructively. Use these skills to make your asks feel like collaborative work rather than demands. Make follow-through visible. When someone supports you, show the concrete outcomes of their contribution. A brief update or a small demonstration of progress builds credibility and makes future asks easier. People want to know their investments are producing value. Visibility also allows you to celebrate milestones, which sustains motivation and attracts additional support. Balance persistence with humility. There is a difference between being stubborn and being steadfast. Persistence is the discipline to continue in the face of obstacles. Humility is the openness to learn when an approach is not working. Combining both qualities creates resilience without arrogance. Ask, act, assess, then adapt. That cycle keeps you moving forward and preserves relationships. Train for momentum by making ask plus action a daily habit. Each day, look for one small request you can make and one action you can take to follow it up. Over time, these habits become structural and drive cumulative influence. The compounded effect of daily ask plus action is what I call momentum audiobooks, the slow and persistent buildup of influence, credibility, and results that changes how the world responds to you. Keep refining your approach based on data and experience. Notice what type of asks get the best responses, which follow-up timing works, and which words convey clarity. Treat your communication as an evolving experiment. The smarter you become at designing asks and executing on them, the faster you will scale results. Continuous refinement is not wasted effort, it is the engine of improvement. Finally, remember that asking and following through is ethical leadership. When you ask for help and then deliver, you demonstrate respect for other people's time and resources. You set an example for others to act responsibly with the support they receive. That integrity creates trust, and trust is the currency that amplifies future asks. Over months and years, the combined effect of these behaviors forms a life where requests are met with cooperation, where opportunities multiply, and where your progress is the natural outcome of consistent, aligned choices. When you practice asking often, you also begin to notice patterns in yourself and in others. You learn which phrases land, which timing works, and which posture invites cooperation. This awareness is a superpower because it lets you tune your approach without losing authenticity. Observation is not manipulation, it is learning. Watch how people respond to direct language versus hedged language. Notice when your timing hits a receptive moment and when it collides with distraction. Over time, these small observations accumulate into a refined sense of judgment about when to speak, how to frame your request, and who is likely to help. Be curious about process rather than defensive about outcome. When a request fails, ask what happened without making it a referendum on your worth. Approach the aftermath as a scientist would: collect data, hypothesize, test again. Did the person need more context? Were they under pressure? Was your ask ambiguous? These questions help you learn faster than ruminating on imagined flaws. Curiosity converts disappointment into training, a rehearsal for better future attempts. Maintain a tidy boundary between identity and reception. Your value is not the sum of others' responses. When you ask and get a no, pause, breathe, and separate the outcome from who you are. This separation protects your dignity and keeps you in the game. People who conflate a rejected ask with personal failure slow down or stop. People who keep their identity intact see rejection as information and continue to iterate. That mindset shift is essential because it keeps you resilient and open to the next opportunity. Honor incremental progress. Big wins are built from many small moves and modest course corrections. Celebrate the small yes, the partial agreements, and the productive feedback. Each one represents forward motion and is proof that your process works. Recognize that changing how you ask and how you follow up is a long game. Patience mixed with persistent action outperforms brief bursts of effort followed by exhaustion. When you commit to the long arc, you build credibility that compounds into easier asks and larger returns. Strengthen your vocabulary for requests. Language matters more than most people assume. Replace hedging phrases with precise requests. Change "I was wondering if maybe" to "I would like." Replace "if it's not too much trouble" with "could we schedule 15 minutes?" Words shape expectation. Clear language reduces friction and accelerates decision-making because others know what you want and how to respond. Practicing this verbal economy helps you keep conversations short and effective while preserving warmth. Invest in being useful before asking for help. When you bring value to others, they are more likely to reciprocate. That does not mean you should seek to buy favors or manipulate relationships, it means authentic reciprocity builds durable networks. Offer your time, your skill, or your attention in ways that matter to people you respect. Those deposits create a reservoir of goodwill that you can draw from when you need to ask something meaningful. Reciprocity is not a ledger to be tallied publicly, it is the natural flow of healthy relationships. Develop rituals of reflection after each important ask. Spend a few minutes reviewing what went well and what didn't. Note the specific words that triggered engagement and those that caused confusion. Record one experiment to try next time. This lightweight debriefing becomes an engine of improvement because it turns each interaction into feedback for the next. Over months, these micro-adjustments produce a dramatically more effective way of communicating. Stay mindful about emotional escalation. When stakes are high, emotions run hotter and language can become sharp. Practice pausing before responding to provocation. A short silence or a deliberate breath allows you to choose a reply that preserves relationship and intention rather than one that reacts unconsciously. Emotional control does not mean suppressing feeling, it means choosing how to express it in service of the outcome you want. Guard your energy by choosing the right channels. Some asks land better in person, others over email, and some through a quick message. If your request requires nuance, find a format that allows for clarity and follow-up. If speed matters, pick a channel that is likely to be seen quickly. Matching medium to message reduces misunderstandings and speeds resolution. Thoughtful channel selection is a small skill that eliminates friction and respects both parties' time. Practice verbal brevity. The most persuasive asks are often the shortest. A concise statement gives others a clear window to say yes or no without being overwhelmed. Clarity and brevity are gifts to the listener. When you distill your request into a simple sentence, you make it easy for someone else to act. This economy of language is particularly useful in professional contexts where decision fatigue is real. Create a personal ask policy. Decide what you will ask for, how you will present it, and how you will follow up. This policy is not rigid dogma, it is a framework to keep you consistent. It helps you avoid impulsive asks driven by short-term emotion and ensures you bring your best self to important conversations. A policy might include things like a one-paragraph follow-up template, a limit on the number of follow-ups, and a rule to always propose a concrete next step. Practice humility without shrinking. There is power in admitting limits while still asking for what you need. Saying, "I need help understanding this part," is both humble and direct. People respect honesty combined with agency. Humility signals that you are open to improvement, not that you are helpless. It invites collaboration rather than pity. Train to ask better questions. Questions steer conversations. Open-ended queries can invite exploration, while specific questions invite decisions. When you want action, ask a question that leads to a yes/no or a clear next step. For instance, "Can we meet Wednesday at 2 p.m. to finalize this?" is more actionable than, "Can we talk about this sometime?" Thoughtful question design is a skill that accelerates results. Be intentional about whom you include. Bringing the right people into a discussion can change its trajectory. Consider who has influence, who has the needed knowledge, and who will be affected by the decision. Including those stakeholders early prevents later friction and increases the chance of a substantive outcome. Don't over-include, which dilutes responsibility, but do include enough to make the path forward visible and fair. Practice radical clarity in your internal narrative. When you ask yourself what you truly want, avoid vague ambitions. Define outcomes that are measurable and time-bound. Vague desires are hard to communicate and even harder to act on. By being precise with yourself, you make it easier to be precise with others. Clarity inside translates into clarity outside. Build a rhythm of consistent outreach. Instead of asking only when in crisis, integrate outreach into your routine. Regular check-ins, casual updates, and lightweight asks keep relationships active and make larger requests feel normal when they come. People are more likely to respond positively to someone who engages consistently rather than someone who appears only when in need. Practice gratitude publicly when appropriate. A public acknowledgement of support can magnify goodwill and signal to others the value of helping you. When a colleague, friend, or mentor supports your ask, a concise public thank you recognizes their role and reinforces the social norm of reciprocity. Gratitude strengthens networks and makes future asks more natural. Keep ethical standards high. Asking with integrity means not overstating facts, not promising what you cannot deliver, and not exploiting connections. Integrity builds a reputation that multiplies the effectiveness of future asks. Over time, consistent ethical behavior becomes a core reason others choose to help you. Learn to say no gracefully. Protecting your own boundaries helps you ask more effectively because it ensures you have the capacity to follow through. Saying no when appropriate preserves your reputation for reliability. It also teaches others how to treat your time and attention, which makes your asks more likely to be taken seriously when you do make them. Remember that the movement you are building is cumulative. Brief, consistent acts of clarity, follow-up, and execution create a force that shifts how the world reacts to you. That force is what I call momentum audiobooks. It is not a single moment of triumph but a persistent, compounding presence that makes future asks easier, responses faster, and results more predictable. Keep your practice humble and relentless. The combination of clarity, action, and respect for others is simple yet profound. Do the work daily, treat each interaction as data, and remain open to learning. Over time, the small disciplined choices you make will transform your relationships, your opportunities, and your life trajectory. When you make asking part of your rhythm, you begin to see asking not as a one-time event but as a continuous conversation with the world. That shift changes how outcomes unfold. Instead of expecting a singular verdict, you treat each interaction as a checkpoint, a chance to gather information, refine your approach, and move again. Conversations that lead to progress rarely follow a single linear path. They are iterative, messy, and full of small decisions. Embrace that messiness. Understand that progress is built from frequent, well-shaped interactions rather than from waiting for a perfect instant. When you show up repeatedly with clarity and follow through, people begin to expect movement from you. That expectation is an asset, it turns your voice into momentum. Design your requests so they become easy next steps for others to take. People are busy and overloaded, asking in ways that reduce effort for the other person dramatically increases the likelihood of a helpful response. Offer options rather than open-ended demands. Present a short list of times, propose a succinct agenda, or include a one-page summary they can scan quickly. When you lower the friction of responding, you make it simple for others to say yes or to provide useful feedback. Thoughtful design is a kindness that pays back in speed and cooperation. Learn to use constraints as clarity tools. Human decisions improve when options are bounded. If you ask for help with a project, specify the exact scope and timeframe you have in mind. If you ask for mentorship, propose a 5-minute weekly check-in rather than an undefined help. Constraints make it easier for people to evaluate the cost of saying yes and reduce the mental load of deciding. When you propose limited, testable commitments, you remove an easy reason for a no and create a pathway to scale the ask if it succeeds. Cultivate the habit of concise context. Often requests fail because there is too much or too little background. Provide just enough context to make the request meaningful and then move directly to the ask. A brief lead-in that explains relevance and impact helps the listener prioritize. If you find yourself offering long explanations before the ask, practice editing down to the essential information. Short context followed by a precise question respects both your time and theirs. Use the power of narrative selectively. People respond to stories because stories create emotional engagement and help others imagine outcomes. When appropriate, frame your ask within a short, vivid example of what success looks like. Paint a clear before and after picture in 1 or 2 sentences so the listener can easily visualize the benefit. But avoid lengthy narratives when a simple, practical ask will suffice. Narrative is powerful when it clarifies value, not when it distracts from the decision at hand. Practice anticipatory empathy. Before you ask, imagine the constraints on the other person's plate. Acknowledge those constraints briefly in your request. That simple act reduces defensiveness and shows you respect their reality. For example, I know your schedule is tight, so I've suggested 2 15-minute slots next week, signals thoughtfulness and cuts through uncertainty. Empathy doesn't weaken your ask, it frames it so it lands more smoothly. Turn the habit of asking into a tool for learning. Every ask, whether it results in a yes or a no, carries lessons about timing, language, and alignment. Keep a running list of what you learn from each interaction. Over time, patterns will emerge that reveal which kinds of asks work best with specific people, which times of day are most responsive, and which phrases reliably prompt action. Treat this log as a research notebook. It will help you iterate faster and avoid repeating mistakes. Be mindful of how often you escalate stakes without adequate preparation. Higher stakes asks require stronger evidence, clearer plans, and often, endorsements from allies. If you want a major commitment, a promotion, a partnership, or a budget increase, build a staged approach. Start with smaller asks that demonstrate impact, gather allies, and present evidence from initial wins. A phased strategy reduces risk for decision-makers and increases your credibility. Ambition is best served by strategic sequencing, not by surprise leaps that leave others unprepared. Guard against the tendency to over-justify. When we ask for something meaningful, we sometimes feel compelled to prove beyond doubt that we deserve it. Over-justification dilutes the directness of the request and buries the ask beneath defensive language. Instead, state the need succinctly, provide key evidence, and then pause. Allow the other person to respond. If they seek more information, give it. But resist the urge to preemptively defend every angle, it signals insecurity and can create unnecessary friction. Practice the discipline of one-line asks in digital communication. Email and messaging are useful, but they often suffer from verbosity and lack of clarity. Learn to distill your request into a single sentence that includes the desired action and the proposed next step. For example, could we meet 20 minutes on Thursday to discuss a proposal? I can send a one-page summary beforehand. This format gives recipients what they need to act immediately and reduces the chance your message gets ignored because it seems like an imposition. Create margin for follow-through. People who are reliable allocate time for the actions that follow their asks. When you ask for something, block a small period on your calendar to complete the follow-up item. That tiny habit prevents losing momentum and demonstrates that you value both your time and the other person's. Scheduling follow-up prevents the common drift from request to inaction that undermines credibility. Experiment with escalation ladders. When you encounter resistance, plan a sequence of alternative asks that progressively widen possibilities. Start with a modest, low-cost option, then propose a scaled-up version if the first step succeeds. Escalation ladders allow others to say yes in stages and give you clear options rather than an all-or-nothing stall. This method turns gatekeeping into an opportunity to build confidence through incremental wins. Keep your emotional balance in negotiations. High-stakes conversations can trigger strong feelings. Prepare yourself by naming the emotions you expect and design a short grounding routine to regain balance if needed. A calm, steady presence signals that you are a rational partner who can handle complexity. People are more willing to engage in difficult decisions with someone who remains composed and focused on shared outcomes. Cultivate a small circle of truth-tellers. Trusted confidants who will give you honest feedback before you go into an important ask are invaluable. They see blind spots and help you refine language, tone, and evidence. Choose people who will challenge you gently and impose reality checks without discouragement. That pre-flight review often surfaces simple improvements that dramatically increase the odds of success. Learn to convert bureaucratic obstacles into clear experiments. If a formal process is slowing you down, propose a trial outside the usual channels with clear boundaries and a sunset clause. People who are risk-averse often agree to pilots because they limit exposure. Frame the pilot as a learning opportunity with measurable criteria for success and a clear timeline for re-evaluation. This approach reduces fear and often produces data that legitimizes broader adoption. Remember that your reputation compounds. Each time you ask and then deliver, you build a track record that precedes you. Decision-makers start to anticipate your competence and are more likely to invest time in your requests. Reputation makes future asks easier because it reduces the need for exhaustive evidence. Past performance becomes the shorthand for trust. Protect that reputation through consistency, honesty, and clear follow-through. Integrate public signals of reliability. When appropriate, share brief public updates or acknowledgments that document progress and credit collaborators. Public signals, a concise note about a milestone or a quick thank you that recognizes contributors, make your work visible and reward those who helped. Visibility amplifies readiness for future asks because it demonstrates momentum and communal backing. Practice ruthlessly eliminating ambiguity. Ambiguity kills momentum because it forces others to guess your intention. Before you ask, check that your language leaves no necessary questions unanswered. If the ask requires decisions, make a recommendation. If it requires a timeline, propose one. If it has budget implications, provide a realistic number or a phased budget. Clarity preserves agency for both you and the other person. Hold a modest standard for persistence. Persistence matters, but so does elegance in how you persist. Aim for follow-ups that are succinct, polite, and value-oriented. Avoid repetitive messages that only restate the original ask without adding new information. Each follow-up should either deliver new data, propose an adjusted solution, or request a simple decision. That discipline keeps your persistence constructive rather than annoying. Finally, balance ambition with stewardship. Ambition drives you to ask, but stewardship ensures that your asks do not deplete others. Stewardship is the practice of asking in ways that respect other people's time, resources, and boundaries while still advancing your goals. When you steward relationships well, you create durable support systems that will answer your calls when you need them most. The long game of consistent clarity, compassionate follow-through, and strategic sequencing produces a force I call momentum audiobooks, a cumulative, dependable push that opens doors and sustains growth over time. When you ask clearly and follow through, you begin to see the world differently. Instead of waiting for approval or scanning for permission, you treat each interaction as a chance to learn and to move. That shift changes your posture. You become someone who creates options rather than someone who passively hopes for them. Notice how people respond to your requests. Some will lean in and make space. Some will offer thoughtful no's that explain constraints. Some will ignore or deflect. Those responses are information. They tell you where to invest your energy and where to conserve it. When someone consistently honors your voice, you have found an ally. When someone repeatedly dismisses or minimizes your needs, that pattern signals a cost to staying. Your job is to observe, not to personalize, and to act on what the behavior reveals. Pay attention to how requests land in different contexts. The same ask that works in a one-on-one conversation may fail in a group setting. The same language that persuades a numeric-minded manager may not convince someone oriented around relationships. Adapting to context is not inauthenticity, it is intelligence. It demonstrates you have thought about the other person's world. This small effort increases clarity and shortens the path to yes. When you shape requests to match the environment and the person, you reduce friction and increase the chance of a constructive reply. Protect your boundaries without apology. Asking frequently surfaces a truth: not everyone will be willing or able to reciprocate. That is not a moral judgment on you. People have limited time, capacity, and priorities. When someone repeatedly ignores or punishes your attempts to speak, you must decide whether to keep investing or to reallocate your energy. Protecting your boundaries may mean saying no to additional requests from people who drain you, or it may mean stepping back from relationships that require you to shrink. These decisions are not cruelty, they are stewardship. Your attention is finite. Use it where it yields mutual respect and growth. Notice how your own behavior shapes responses. If you habitually apologize or hedge before you ask, you teach people to treat your requests as tentative. If you consistently follow up and deliver on small promises, you build credibility that makes larger asks easier. Your past actions create expectations. Use that reality to your advantage by being reliable, clear, and considerate. Reliability compounds. It makes others more willing to say yes because they trust you will convert support into impact. That track record is one of your most persuasive assets. Use refusal intelligently. A no can be a pivot, not a full stop. When someone declines, ask a short clarifying question: what would make this possible in the future? Is there a timeline or a different form this could take? These follow-ups convert rejection into a set of experiments. They give you alternatives to pursue and keep the door open for creativity. When you respond to no with curiosity, you take control of the narrative. You treat the conversation as a data-gathering exercise that helps you refine the next ask rather than as a confirmation of failure. Scale the practice of asking by embedding it into daily routines. Make it ordinary to voice needs, to request feedback, and to propose small experiments. When asking becomes part of the rhythm of your work and life, it loses the dramatic charge that once made it frightening. You will surprise yourself at how many doors open simply because you knocked repeatedly with clear, well-prepared requests. That habit builds a kind of social credit. People start to expect you to ask and to act, and they prepare to respond. Refine your language for precision and brevity. Ask in sentences that are easy to remember and easy to act on. The brain dislikes ambiguity and postpones decisions when the choice feels unclear. A concise ask reduces cognitive friction and invites a quick response. When you practice short, direct language, you make it simpler for others to help you. This clarity is also a kindness. It saves people's time and mental energy, and it demonstrates that you respect both your needs and their constraints. Build a small portfolio of pilots and experiments. If you want larger commitments, propose a low-risk trial that can demonstrate value. Pilots remove the need for absolute certainty. They give decision-makers a safe way to test an idea with measurable criteria and a sunset clause. If the trial succeeds, you have evidence. If it fails, you have learning to guide the next attempt. This staged approach reduces the friction of major asks and makes progress more achievable. Monitor where you spend your asking energy. Not every person is a channel to the opportunity you want. Some relationships will yield high returns for modest effort, others will not. Spend more time building the former and less time trying to extract value from the latter. That is strategic stewardship. It does not mean you are disloyal, it means you are pragmatic. Your future depends on compounding influence, and compounding happens where respect and reciprocity exist. Practice public modesty and private persistence. Publicly, acknowledge the help you receive and give credit to collaborators. That builds goodwill. Privately, follow up, refine, and iterate until you have the results that justify further asks. This balance between visible gratitude and behind-the-scenes discipline sustains relationships and produces outcomes. People will help those who are both appreciative and effective. Keep your inner narrative aligned with action. When you ask, avoid catastrophizing possible outcomes. Replace imaginative worst-case stories with concrete contingency plans. If you fear a negative answer, prepare your follow-up question. If you fear being judged, practice the opening sentence and breathe twice before you speak. These small preparations reduce anxiety and increase clarity. Your internal story governs your behavior more than external events do, so maintain one that supports persistence rather than retreat. Use silence strategically after you ask. Allowing a pause provides space for the other person to process and respond. Silence can be a soft pressure that encourages thoughtful replies. Resist the urge to fill every moment with additional reasoning. If you worry you sounded incomplete, send a brief follow-up message later rather than trying to fix it in the moment. Thoughtful pacing often wins where forceful insistence fails. Remember that asking and receiving are reciprocal skills. When you help others secure what they need, you strengthen the social fabric that supports your own future asks. Be generous with your attention and your expertise when appropriate. Those deposits build social capital that comes back when you need it most. Reciprocity is not transactional accounting, it is a pattern of mutual support that grows stronger over time. Be careful with escalation. When an ask is repeatedly refused without constructive dialogue, consider whether escalation through proper channels is appropriate. Escalation is not about punishment, it's about finding the right decision-maker or the right context where the request can be evaluated fairly. Use escalation sparingly and with tact. It is a tool for when standard approaches have been exhausted, not the first resort. Train for calm under pressure. High-stakes conversations will come. Prepare a short grounding technique, a two-breath reset, a brief reframe, a single-line restatement of your intent, that helps you maintain composure. Composure is persuasive. People make better decisions with partners who remain clear and steady, even when the stakes are high. Keep experimenting with follow-up timing. Some people respond well to immediate reminders, others prefer time to reflect. Track what works. When you learn a person's rhythm, you can time your asks and follow-ups to land when they are most receptive. This pattern of adaptive timing increases the efficiency of your outreach and reduces wasted energy. Celebrate the changes you create. Small wins matter. When your ask leads to a positive shift, acknowledge it and mark it. These moments build confidence and remind you that asking plus action produces results over time. They also provide data you can use for larger requests later. Evidence of past impact shortens the path to future support. Hold the long view. The process of asking, iterating, and following through compounds. It is not a sprint but a sustained series of disciplined acts. The people who build meaningful lives are those who consistently combine clear voice with accountable action. Over months and years, those habits shape the trajectory of your career, relationships, and influence. Name the pattern in your mind, Momentum Audiobooks. Let the term remind you that progress is cumulative and that deliberate, repeated asking and action produce structural change. One last, vital point, be kind to yourself in the process. Progress is uneven. You will misread contexts, lose opportunities, and hear hard numbers. That is part of the work. Learn from each interaction, adjust, and move forward. The practice of asking faithfully and following through generously changes not only what happens around you but who you become. Keep showing up. Keep refining. Keep pairing clear asks with consistent actions. Your life will respond. This is the moment to bring everything together and move forward with deliberate practice. You have learned to notice the instincts that keep you quiet, to separate your worth from a single answer, to choose clear language over hedging, and to pair each request with immediate, responsible action. None of these skills are mysterious. They are practical behaviors you can rehearse and refine. The final piece is to commit to them with steady repetition so that they become your default way of operating. When asking becomes ordinary, you stop treating it as an event and start treating it as a reliable process. That process is what changes outcomes more than one dramatic pitch or one perfectly timed moment ever could. Begin today by choosing one small, high-value habit you can repeat daily. It might be a short, precise ask you make to someone on your team, a single follow-up note you send after meetings, or a quick gratitude message that acknowledges support you received. The specific habit matters less than the consistency. Repetition rewires expectation. The brain learns safety through repeated exposure. The more you lean into these micro-practices, the more your nervous system stops alarming you at the first sign of discomfort. Each small action weakens fear and reinforces competence. Over months, those tiny habits compound into real, visible momentum. Keep sharpening how you frame requests. Clarity is kindness because it spares the other person unnecessary work and reduces the chance your message gets lost. Before you speak, answer 3 internal questions. What outcome do I want? How will the other person benefit or at least be minimally burdened? And what is the simplest next step I can propose? If you can answer those quickly, your ask will sound crisp and reasonable. People respond when they can see the cost and the gain in plain terms. When you provide both, you make it easier for them to say yes or to give constructive feedback. Hold fast to the practice of turning no's into information. A decline is rarely a final verdict on your potential, it is often a directional cue about timing, priorities, or presentation. Instead of taking a no as proof you should stop, use it as an invitation to ask a single clarifying question: what would need to change for this to be possible? That follow-up reveals whether there is a path forward and, if so, what the precise adjustments are. This transforms rejection from a wall into a map and preserves momentum. Develop the habit of publicizing small wins and thanking those who helped you reach them. Visibility builds credibility because it turns anecdotal effort into documented progress. A short, humble update that credits collaborators and highlights measurable movement makes it easier to gain allies and resources in the future. It signals that when people invest in you, measurable returns follow. That reputation reduces friction for your next request. Respect your limits while pushing them thoughtfully. Being strategic about asking does not mean you never stretch, it means you choose stretches that align with your capacity to follow through. Overcommitting weakens trust. Saying yes to too much erodes the very reputation you are trying to build. Part of effective asking is learning to say no when necessary so that your yes are credible and your commitments are fulfilled. This discipline protects your energy and ensures that when you ask for something important, people know you will deliver. Make learning an essential part of the routine. After every important ask, take 2 minutes to reflect on what worked and what can improve. Capture one concrete tweak for next time. This tiny meta-practice accelerates growth. It prevents the same mistakes from accumulating and turns ordinary interactions into an ongoing training regimen that sharpens your communication, timing, and follow-through. Cultivate allies who amplify your voice and hold you to higher standards. An ally can be someone who introduces you to key people, someone who co-signs a proposal, or someone who gives honest feedback before you go public. Build these relationships by offering value consistently. Reciprocity creates durable support networks so that when you make a significant ask, you are not starting from zero. You are leveraging a field of people who already expect your clarity and execution. Protect the rituals that help you perform under pressure. Simple routines, a 2-breath pause before asking, a 1-sentence rehearsal, a short note that outlines desired outcomes, anchor you in the moment and reduce anxiety. Rituals are not superstition, they are practical tools that convert cognitive load into a structured response. Use them to prevent adrenaline from commandeering your message and to present yourself in a way that invites collaboration rather than defensiveness. Be ruthless about eliminating ambiguity. If you cannot state what you want in one clear sentence, refine the request until you can. Ambiguity is a momentum killer because it forces others to guess and procrastinate. When you speak plainly, you create a decision point. People may still say no, but they will do so with clarity and often with guidance that helps you move forward. That is preferable to being stuck in an indefinite maybe. Practice courageous patience. Big results are rarely the product of a single conversation. They are cumulative. Keep asking, keep acting, and keep iterating. When progress stalls, return to the fundamentals. Was your ask clear? Did you propose a reasonable next step? Did you follow up responsibly? And did you learn from the response? If the answer to any of those is no, correct course. Momentum accelerates when discipline meets adaptability. Avoid moralizing other people's constraints. If someone cannot meet your request, their limitations are often practical and not personal. When you respond with curiosity rather than assumption, you keep the relationship intact and open the door for future alignment. Saying, "I appreciate your honesty, can you help me understand what would work better?" converts a closed door into a potential collaboration. Keep calibrating the scale of your asks. Start small, gather evidence, and expand. Large asks typically succeed when they are supported by a trail of small, documented wins that demonstrate feasibility and impact. Use pilots, prototypes, and phased approaches to de-risk big proposals. Decision-makers say yes more readily when they can see a clear plan for learning and a path to mitigate downside. Hold your standard steady. Do not dilute your core needs to placate others. If something is a non-negotiable for your well-being or growth, treat it as such. Communicate those boundaries clearly and calmly. People who respect those limits are worth engaging with, those who consistently violate them are telling you where not to invest your energy. Protecting your standards is not rigidity, it is self-respect. Turn habit into identity. When you consistently ask clearly, follow through faithfully, and learn from each response, you transform the act of asking into a core part of who you are. You stop seeing it as a skill you use occasionally and start seeing it as your natural mode of operation. That identity shift reduces friction and increases the frequency with which you step forward. It also changes how others perceive you. People come to expect clarity, reliability, and steady progress from you, and that expectation becomes a resource. Be generous in attribution. Recognize the people who help you and make their contributions visible. This practice deepens trust and makes future asks smoother because people feel seen, not used. Gratitude is not currency you spend, it is the social glue that keeps collaborations healthy. Keep experimenting with channels and timing. Some conversations are best in person, some via a concise email, and some via a quick message that sets up a richer discussion later. Learning the rhythms of different people, when they are most responsive and in what medium, increases efficiency and respect. Align your method with the message for better outcomes. Accept that growth will be uneven and imperfect. You will make mistakes, misread contexts, and receive hard numbers. Do not let that deter you. The pattern of asking, acting, and learning will produce results over time if you remain consistent. Use setbacks as signals, not verdicts. Reframe them as opportunities to refine your next approach. When you develop that habit, resilience becomes second nature. Finally, commit to the long view. Momentum is not an event, it is the sum of countless small, disciplined choices made day after day. By pairing precise asks with responsible action, documenting learning, and cultivating reciprocal relationships, you create a cumulative force that transforms what's possible. Give yourself permission to be a work in progress while staying ruthlessly committed to consistent improvement. Over time, those who persist in clear asking and steady doing are the ones whose lives bend toward opportunity and whose voices are heard when it matters most.